He fired me the week I learned to count 2 heartbeats. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He closed the laptop with a quiet click, looked at the space above my shoulder as if feelings lived there, and said, "We're downsizing. Your role is redundant." I swallowed the word redundant like a stone. My palms cupped my belly without moving. My mouth wanted to say, "Please, there's a life inside me you can't lay off." Instead I said, "I understand," because poverty had taught me to be fluent in obedience. I had met Adrian Vale through a revolving glass door and a hunger I pretended not to have. Vale Dynamics was a city made of glass and humming air conditioning. I was a woman made of bus rides and borrowed shoes. He walked through halls with a velocity that made other men match their stride. His cologne smelled like thunder about to choose a tree. The day he interviewed me, he asked 3 questions, none of them about my past. Can you keep confidences? Can you own your mistakes? Can you learn so fast it looks like remembering? My yes were honest. My rent was not paid. I started as an analyst and became a shadow. I learned his calendar the way my grandmother had learned prayers, by the cadence of need. I poured coffee, but I also poured calm into rooms that crackled. He thought efficiency was kindness. I thought kindness was a door you opened even if you were late. Then the bleeding started like a red whisper in a bathroom stall that smelled of lemon and fear. 2 pink lines had already made my heart a cathedral. I pressed tissue to myself and counted. I promised the little one I would be a country they could trust. I hid the nausea inside peppermint candies and held my breath when the elevator dropped to floor. He had announced restructuring in a voice that pretended it wasn't announcing a storm. I wore my cleanest blouse and a courage that measured too small. The HR director, Clara, watched me like a cat watches a bird learning to fly. "We appreciate your service," she said, and I thought of those churches where appreciation is the only currency the poor can afford to give. When Adrian said redundant, I tasted iron. When Clara slid the envelope across the table, the paper hissed like a snake. I left with a cardboard box and a future that had just forgotten my name. On the sidewalk, the city walked past me, and I wanted to grab a stranger and say, "There's a person inside me who needs me to be more than this." I carried my plants home and lied to them about the light. My mother's cough had begun to rhyme. In our apartment, the air wrote its own obituary. She smiled too brightly when I told her, "It's just a break, I'll find something better." She stirred soup like stirring could heal lungs. When she touched my cheek, her hand smelled of eucalyptus and work. I looked for jobs with my phone at 5% battery. Cupboards turned into museums where food used to live. I sold a necklace my father had given me the year he died, a coin on a string, the kind of wealth that loves you back. The landlord knocked with politeness that creaked. I told myself anger was a warmth I couldn't afford to waste. The first contraction wasn't a contraction. It was a warning in the language of tightness and lightheadedness. I was slicing apples and the knife slipped because the world did. I sat down hard on the kitchen floor and counted to 10. Then the next. The doctor had said mild preeclampsia, like a storm we might outrun. The storm had my address. The hospital was colder than winter is when it forgets your name. Fluorescent lights make everyone look like a confession. They strapped a cuff to my arm and it squeezed like a question that won't let go. "Pressure's high," the nurse said, which made me think of rent. "We need to admit you," the doctor said, which made me think of guilt. I was alone in a bed that raised and lowered with a button, and I thought of Adrian, how he had said redundant and not "I'm sorry." I pressed my palm to my belly and told the small sailor inside that we were a boat with no permission to sink. The monitor beat our hope out loud. Beep, pause, beep, a metronome for courage. The doctor came back with a clipboard and a voice like a lighthouse. "We need to authorize a magnesium drip and keep you under observation," she said. "Also, your insurance, are you still covered by Vale Dynamics?" "I was terminated," I said. The word tasted like I'd bitten a coin. She flipped a page. Her face altered, then softened as if a breeze had remembered to be kind. "You're still listed on a corporate maternal care rider," she said. "Sometimes admin lags behind." "It won't," I said. "Clara is efficient." My chest burned at her name. The doctor looked at my bracelet, then at me. "If complications escalate, we might transfer you to the Vale Center uptown. They have a level 4 NICU. She paused. "If we do, I'll need to contact the designated corporate steward for authorization." "What does that even mean?" I asked. Words were puzzle pieces the poor aren't given the box for. She glanced down at the form as if reading a prayer. Then she looked up and spoke a name like she was opening a door. "Adrian Vale." The room tilted. Why would he? "You're under a special coverage he personally signed," she said carefully. "I've seen this once before with another employee, long story. He probably set it up for key staff. I'll confirm. For now, let me get that drip started." His name hung in the air like a key inching toward a lock. I felt all my anger wake up for work. He fired me. He called my life a redundancy. He might also be the tether between my baby and a machine that learns to breathe for small lungs. I closed my eyes and saw his hand closing the laptop. I opened them and saw the doctor's kindness. If you call him, I said, don't tell him I asked. Don't tell him anything about me except what the law requires. Pride puts on a brave coat when you're naked. She nodded. I'll call the steward line, not his personal. Try to rest. Rest was a story I used to believe. The drip made my body a boat, the ceiling became a sky I could count. From the next bay, I heard a woman sing a lullaby into a phone as if the baby could listen through the belly. A nurse whispered, breathe. The blood pressure cuff squeezed like the hand of someone who wanted me to stay. The doctor, her name was on her coat, S. Malik, returned with a pocket of weather on her face. We're transferring you, she said. Your labs are climbing. I reached the steward. He authorized full transfer, private room, neonatal standby. Who was the steward? I asked. It mattered for a reason I couldn't name. Mr. Vale, she said simply. He was prompt. I imagined his jaw when he learned. I imagined his eyes on a window not looking at anything. I imagined him saying in that uninflected tone, do whatever is necessary. I hated that my gratitude had anywhere to go. They rolled me through corridors that smelled like antiseptic and hope. In the ambulance, the paramedic talked nonsense to keep the air light. Your kid's going to like pancakes, he said, strong heartbeat like a drummer. I held that like a charm. At the Vale Center, the walls were art and the floors were forgiveness. They slid me under lights that didn't feel like interrogation. Nurses moved with a choreography the rich can afford to practice. Dr. Malik's hand found mine. If everything goes well, we commit, you go home in a few days pregnant and bored. If it doesn't, we have a plan. You're not alone. The door opened and he walked in alone. No entourage, no assistant, no Clara. Just Adrian, in a black sweater that made him look human and a face that had been taught how to be unreadable. He stopped 3 feet from the bed like there was a moat. His eyes went first to the monitor, then to the magnesium bag, then to me. They didn't flinch. I'm here to authorize, he said. My name didn't appear. You're here because Dr. Malik spoke your name, I said. A miracle of paperwork. Something crossed his face, not yet remorse, maybe recognition. There was an employee coverage rider added 2 years ago, he said. I sign a lot of. I remember, I said, because remembering was my job when it used to pay. Your sister's pregnancy lost at 22 weeks. You quietly added support. The memory landed between us like a bird no one wanted to startle. He swallowed. I didn't know, he said finally, not looking away. About you. About this. You knew enough to fire me, I said, the word blade sharp. Redundant, you said. His jaw worked. We cut an entire division, he said, as if reciting facts could undo consequences. Your name was on a list I trusted. Clara's list, I said, letting the syllables do a little damage before I stopped. Of course. Dr. Malik cleared her throat, a wise woman keeping time. We need to make calls, she said. If you'll excuse us, Mr. Vale, please sign the transfer orders for neonatal standby. Ms. Hart, keep breathing with me. He signed. Paper makes sturdy bridges when people don't know how. He stayed, a man who had learned how to stand still in rooms where his money had already entered before him. I hated him for that stillness. I also hated the way my hand reached in the mind's small theater for his fingers when the monitor beeped an anxious rhythm. Who is your emergency contact? He asked quietly. Me, I said. Pride again, ridiculous and necessary. You can put me, he said, so soft I almost missed it. I'm not your responsibility, I said. I was your redundancy. He looked at me like that word had finally come home to him as a crime. He didn't touch the bed rails. He didn't touch me. He touched nothing, and that restraint felt, for once, like respect. I slept and woke and slept again while nurses performed acts of quiet heroism. Labs drifted back from the cliff. The magnesium made my arms heavy and my fear heavy and my baby's heartbeat steady as a lighthouse. Dr. Malik smiled the way people smile when science and prayer shake hands. You're responding, she said. We keep you here until the numbers behave. He brought nothing with him the next morning, no flowers, no apologies. He brought a chair and sat in it, the way a man sits at the edge of a bed in a room he doesn't own. About your termination, he said, and the word termination did the ugly work it always does. I reviewed the logs last night. Clara modified attendance records the week you started taking half-days for prenatal visits. His eyes met mine. She flagged you as underperforming. She buried accommodation requests. He stopped, as if disgust had hands and was pulling on his throat. I didn't see it. That's on me. Seeing is a choice, I said. So is not seeing. My voice surprised me with its calm. My body was busy staying pregnant, my mouth had no energy left for rage. I placed her on leave, he said. Compliance is awake. He exhaled. The sound was human. Silence sat with us a while. In it, I could hear the machines rehearsing a future for my child. In it, I could hear my mother's cough inside my memory like a knock. In it, I could hear everything we hadn't said curdling. He said it first. I'm sorry. The words didn't arrive with a marching band. They didn't even bring flowers. They came in barefoot and sat down and looked at their feet. I tried them in my mouth. Noted, I said, because I wasn't built for generosity on command. Then, after a breath that belonged to both of us, thank you. He looked relieved in a way that made me want to both forgive him and make him earn it for the rest of his life. What do you need? He asked. I almost said, a time machine. Instead, rent. And a fridge that doesn't echo. And my mother's inhaler refilled. And a job. Not charity, not pity, work. He nodded like a student who had finally found the page. You have it, he said. All of it. Not because I'm trying to buy absolution. Because I broke things I should have protected. Don't say things you can't keep, I said. I'm too pregnant for promises made from guilt. Then let me start with actions, he said. Tonight. He left and returned that evening with two people who didn't look like they reported to him, they looked like they listened to him. One brought a folder and a reinstatement letter without fanfare. The other brought a grocery card and a note from finance that said the words retroactive and apology like they meant something. He signed nothing in front of me. He hadn't come for theater. Your mother? He asked. On the edge of breath most days, I said. He nodded again, like someone counting steps. Dr. Malik? She appeared with the grace of someone who anticipates the right question. We'll arrange a home nebulizer through the fund, she said. There's a program. What fund? I asked, suspicious of anything that sounded like a secret. The Vail Community Wellness Fund, she said, then added as if it mattered, anonymous donors. He looked at the floor. I looked at the truth. Was that you? I asked. He lifted one shoulder. Sometimes money should be given from shadows, he said. So it doesn't embarrass the person standing under the light. The monitors kept singing my child's name in a language only machines and mothers know. Days folded into each other like laundry you don't have time to put away. He came each morning and each night, never longer than the room could bear, never shorter than the heart could register. He learned the sound of the cuff inflating. He learned the nurses' names. He learned to ask, not demand. On the fourth night, the number spiked again. Pain stalked in on the thin legs of panic. The room filled with hands incompetence. We may need to deliver, Dr. Malik said, her voice a rope I could hold. It's early, but survivable. We have the NICU ready. She looked at Adrian. You're still the corporate steward? He straightened like someone had put a crown on his head he didn't want anymore. I am, he said. Stand there, she told him, pointing to a corner where the frightened stand. And pray to whatever you've been pretending not to believe in. I shook and breathed and shook and breathed. My mother arrived as if she had been called by the smell of pain. She touched my forehead with hands that had raised me with everything but money. Anaku, she whispered. Don't be afraid. God is not an investor. I laughed, a broken beautiful sound, and something in me relaxed, as if the baby felt the roof was no longer leaking. The numbers drifted down. The crisis passed us by like a dark car that decided not to stop. After, he stood at the foot of the bed with his hands in his pockets like a boy on picture day. "I don't know how to do this," he said. "Neither do I said. "But our child's heartbeat prefers we learn." Our child. The phrase startled both of us. He looked at my belly like men look at shorelines when they remember boats. "I would like to be there," he said, I would like to be the person who runs for ice chips and forgets where the car is parked and argues with a vending machine. "Those jobs pay terribly," I said. "And are the most expensive thing you can give me." He smiled for the first time, and I realized his face was not built for joy. It learned it the way a muscle does, slowly, with trembling. "Then let me be bad at them and get better." Clara did not go quietly. When compliance knocked on her door, she tried to take the building with her. She sent emails to reporters that were all heat and no light. She suggested I had seduced him to secure benefits. She suggested the pregnancy was strategic, as if wounds were white bards. The story died because it had no blood. The board wanted a head, they got hers. Karma doesn't hurry, but she never gets lost. Weeks softened. Dr. Malik called my numbers well-behaved, which made me want to throw them a birthday party. They let me go home with a list of don'ts and a bag of meds that smelled like the inside of a pharmacy at dawn. Adrian insisted on a car but didn't insist on being in it. He sent a driver who had nothing to say and yet said respect in the way he opened the door. At home, the plants forgave me. The fridge hummed with groceries as if apologizing for having been quiet. The rent was paid without ceremony. A contractor fixed the window that clattered when the wind got ideas. He didn't enter the apartment. He stood in the hall with his hands by his sides, and when my mother invited him in, out of politeness, not inclination, he shook his head. "Not today," he said. "I'll wait until I am someone who deserves tea at your table." Babies do not care about our arcs. They come when they decide the plot needs them. Mine came on a morning that smelled like rain. It wasn't a dramatic breaking of waters, it was a series of disagreements between my body and the clock. By the time we reached the hospital, pain had become both my enemy and my tutor. Dr. Malik kept time with my breath. My mother prayed in a language that had never abandoned her. Adrian held the door for nurses and did not ask for a hero scene. He cried before I did when they placed her in my arms. He apologized to her first, a whisper on her soft hair, and then to me. "I should have protected you," he said. "Both of you." "Then start now," I said, which was mercy and boundary in one simple verb. He did not move into my life like a man who had bought it. He knocked on it every morning he had time and many mornings he did not, and asked, "What is my job today?" Sometimes the job was dishes. Sometimes the job was holding a screaming child while I showered the hospital off me. Sometimes the job was sitting quietly on the floor while my mother told him stories of my father that made even his eyebrows kinder. He asked to sign the birth certificate. "If you want me to," he said, "and if you don't, I will spend the rest of my days earning the right to be the signature that is present without your permission." I let him sign because I wanted my daughter to grow up with 2 names she could call when she was afraid. He cried again, which is a habit men like him should be encouraged to develop. He rebuilt my job without theater. He scrapped the division system that let Clara hide her knives. He put a grief counselor on retainer, not because we had a scandal, but because human beings bleed in offices and call it professionalism. He started signing fewer things and reading more. He put his phone down when he asked a question. He learned my daughter's nap schedule and built meetings around it. Power is not loud when it is brave. I did not forgive him all at once. Forgiveness isn't a switch, it's a porch light you decide to turn on each night because you believe someone you love is trying to come home. Some nights I forgot. On those nights, he stayed on the steps and waited. When my daughter laughed for the first time, a bubbling, ridiculous music that made the walls lean in, we were both there. He looked at me like I had invented sound. I looked at him like he had invented staying. The room smelled like warmed milk and the absence of fear. One afternoon, months later, I found Dr. Malik on her break downstairs by the coffee machine. "You said his name," I told her, "and everything changed." She sipped and shrugged elegant shoulders. "I spoke the truth that would be written," she said. "Sometimes a name is just a key. You were the door." We planted a tree in the park on my daughter's first birthday, a small maple that didn't know how tall it could become. Adrian wore a sweater with a stain because he had finally developed the life that produces stains. My mother brought a cake she insisted was too sweet and then ate 2 slices. We sang badly. We loved well. He asked me to marry him in a kitchen that smelled like garlic and good news. He did not kneel. He did not give me anything that sparkled except his eyes. "I don't deserve a second chance," he said. "But I have learned that deserving is not the right word. Will you let me try again with vows that begin and end with gentleness?" I thought about boardrooms and cardboard boxes, hospitals and monitors, names spoken like keys. I thought about the woman I had been under fluorescent lights and the woman I was now under a warm lamp at midnight with a sleeping child between us like a bridge. I thought about power and how it had fallen to its knees in a corner while a doctor told it to pray. "Not today," I said, "because truth deserves to arrive when it's ready." His face didn't fall, it softened, as if relief lived in honesty. "But keep coming home," I said. "Keep washing strawberries and losing your keys. Keep earning ordinary." He smiled like sunrise. He washed the strawberries. He lost his keys. He stayed. Sometimes I walk past the old building with the revolving door and stand across the street, the way you stand across from a church you don't enter anymore but still respect. I watch the glass turn people into currents. I think of the day he fired me and the day a doctor spoke his name. I think of how both moments opened different doors. He still says sorry sometimes. He says it like a habit that has become a value. I still say, noted, like a woman who knows her worth and her limits. Our daughter says, up. Like gravity is a suggestion. My mother says, enough talking, eat, like love is a bowl that refills itself. On nights when the baby can't sleep and the past wants attention, I tell the story to myself the way my grandmother told me fairy tales, out of order, with the ending changing depending on what the day did to us. It always starts the same, he fired me when I was pregnant. It always passes through the place where the doctor said his name. It always ends with a kitchen, and the ordinary miracle of 2 spoons in a sink and a man putting the kettle on without being asked. I am not a redundancy. I am not even a miracle. I am a woman who learned that a name can be a weapon or a key, that a hospital can be a battlefield or a sanctuary, that forgiveness is not a pardon but a practice. He is not a saint. He is an apology learning how to make breakfast. Our child is a small, loud empire, and we live in it gladly. Stay till the end, the hook had asked you. Here it is, there was never a door locked from the outside. There was a frightened woman on one side and a frightened man on the other, and a doctor who spoke a name at the exact moment fear had run out of useful things to say. The rest was breathing. The rest was showing up. The rest, finally, fully, was love.